Why was she standing alone in the snow, while everyone else stayed inside where it was warm? The storm had rolled in the night before, slow at first, then relentless. By morning, the Colorado peaks wore white like armor, and the access road to the training lodge had narrowed to a single strip of plowed earth. Snowbanks climbed against the pines. Radios crackled across the parking lot as groups unloaded gear beneath tarps stretched tight against the wind. Lieutenant Commander Mara Ellison stepped off the shuttle van without making a sound. She wore a long brown winter coat that seemed too ordinary for a place like this. Her boots were clean but plain. Her hair was tied back in a simple knot. No unit patch, no visible rank, just a laminated tag clipped to her zipper that read M. Ellison, Logistics Analyst. She carried one duffel and a black laptop case. No weapon, no gloves, no swagger. Inside the welcome hall, floorboards creaked beneath her as she approached the check-in desk. The civilian admin scanned her badge, handed her a room key, and pointed down the corridor without a word. No handshake, no briefing. No one looked twice. Off to the side, 3 federal trainees lounged near the fireplace. Caleb, Jax, and Dorsey, late 20s, confident in that casual way that needs no permission. They swapped stories about previous rotations and threw insults at anyone who passed by. When Mara walked through, Jax bumped her elbow hard enough to make her coffee slip from the cup she'd just been handed. It splattered across the entry rug. Caleb snorted, "Easy there, new girl." "Not exactly combat footing," Dorsey added. "Might need to bubble wrap the analyst next time." The 3 of them laughed, sharp and loud. Mara didn't respond. She bent down, grabbed napkins from the counter, and cleaned the spill in silence. When she straightened up, she didn't look at them, but she'd already memorized their names, the way they stood, how their weight shifted, and the fact that none of them carried themselves like they'd seen real violence. Snow lashed against the windows as she made her way down the hall. Floorboards moaned. Overhead lights buzzed faintly. Radios chattered somewhere behind a door. A rescue team checking coordinates. The whole lodge was alive with readiness, but also with assumptions. In the corner of the common room, someone muttered, "Is she admin or IT?" "No idea. She's not listed under ops, just logistics." She passed the bulletin board without stopping. Her name was listed under Audit Observers Week 2, no further detail. No one looked closely. No one asked. And that's exactly how she wanted it. She scanned the exits, clocked the emergency lights, the uneven slope of the back stairwell, the boot treads of everyone coming in from the ridge drills. She wasn't here to make friends. She wasn't here to take notes. She was here to watch, to verify, and if necessary, to intervene. But there was something she hadn't told them, not yet. The next morning started before the sun. A convoy of snowmobiles revved to life outside the lodge, headlights cutting through the dawn fog. Inside, the briefing room buzzed with activity. The air smelled of boot rubber, pine disinfectant, and powdered coffee. Dozens of trainees gathered around stacked crates and laminated maps laid out across folding tables. The instructor, a civilian contractor named Brewster with a patchy beard and a thermos that never left his hand, barked the basics. Cold rescue. Harness drills, ice anchor formation, rappel prep, watch your lines, don't waste daylight. Mara stood near the edge of the group, quietly pulling her gloves tight. She didn't crowd, didn't chime in. Her rope harness was already fastened, textbook secure. No one noticed, except Caleb. He nudged Jax with an elbow and motioned toward her. "She even clippin' yet?" Jax grinned, "Let's find out." As the group moved toward the gear rack, Jax picked up a secondary harness and slipped it into Mara's pile. One of the buckles had been partially unclipped, subtle enough to pass a visual check, but guaranteed to slip under pressure. Mara caught it immediately. She said nothing, just bent down, rethreaded the buckle in one swift movement, and tightened the strap with surgical precision. Her gloves moved like she'd done it 1,000 times blindfolded. Brewster glanced over mid-count. "Something wrong, analyst." She looked up, just fixing a miss back. "Try not to hold us up," he muttered, then moved on. Behind him, Caleb smirked. "She's doing great, real field material." The others laughed. No response from her, just a measured exhale, slow through the nose, breath steady in the freezing air. The drills moved outside. Wind pushed fine snow across the field like mist. Ropes were anchored to lodge pylons and simulated ridge hooks. Teams worked in pairs, one descending, one spotting. When Mara stepped forward for pairing, Caleb stepped back. So did Jax. Dorsey made a point of tightening his own gloves without making eye contact. "No offense," Dorsey said loud enough to be heard. "We don't really do the babysitting thing." A few chuckles. Mara didn't flinch. She just turned to the older medic standing nearby, Harris, maybe mid-50s, the only one wearing a Vietnam-era fleece under his parka. He gave her a quiet nod. "You anchor, I'll drop." They trained together in silence, clean execution. She gave no direction, but her tension handling and brake pressure were perfect. Later inside the lodge, chatter circled like smoke. "Did you see her footing? Walks like an admin officer." "Yeah, with those tiny hands. I've seen better grip on a clipboard." "Bet she brought a keyboard up here in that laptop case." Mara sat near the far fireplace, sipping from a chipped enamel mug, coat still zipped. No reaction, no glance toward the murmurs, but her hand was steady, her jaw relaxed, and her eyes, beneath the reflection of the firelight, tracked every voice without moving. She wasn't angry, she was patient. And patience in the right hands is a weapon. By nightfall, the snow had thickened. It wasn't violent, just relentless. Fine powder layered itself across the window panes and drifted ankle-deep along the cabin eaves. The sound inside the lodge dulled to murmurs and clinking silverware. Radios dimmed. Boots were left at doorways to dry. A quiet hum settled over the mountain. Mara stepped outside with her collar up, hands tucked in her coat pockets, phone pressed to her ear. She walked slowly past the generator housing and toward the side clearing behind the equipment shed where signal was clearest. Her voice, when she spoke, was low and precise. 3 unlogged personnel modifications in the shift roster. No secondary clearance signatures. Multiple irregularities on the training logs. A pause, the wind shifted around her. No engagement yet, I'm observing." She ended the call without expression and slipped the phone into her coat. As she turned back toward the lodge, the crunch of snow behind her made her pause. 3 shapes emerged from the edge of the fire escape: Caleb, Jax, and Dorsey, shoulders hunched against the cold, eyes glassy from the evening's drinks. Caleb walked with that exaggerated looseness that came with too much confidence and not enough consequences. "Look who's out here all alone," he said. Mara stopped, didn't turn, just waited. Jack stepped closer. "You think you're better than us." She turned slowly, her voice was calm. "I don't think about you at all." That landed harder than a shove. Caleb's jaw tightened. "You've been walking around here like you own the place, acting like you're special." "I haven't said a word to any of you." "Exactly," Dorsey said. "That's the problem. You don't fit, you don't belong." She looked at each of them, one by one, not with fear, not with defiance, just observation. "Are we done here?" Caleb stepped forward, close enough that she could smell the whiskey on his breath. "We're done when we say we're done." He reached out, not to hit her, just to shove her back, to remind her who was in control. But what happened next, no one expected. She moved. Not fast, not wild, just precise. Her left hand caught his wrist mid-reach and redirected it downward. Her right foot swept behind his ankle, and in one smooth motion, she rotated her hips and dropped him face first into the snow. It took less than 2 seconds. Jax lunged next. She sidestepped, used his momentum against him, and guided him straight into the snowbank beside the shed. He hit hard, gasped, stayed down. Dorsey hesitated. That hesitation cost him everything. She stepped in close, controlled his balance with one hand on his shoulder, and applied just enough pressure to his elbow joint to drop him to his knees. No break, no injury, just control. Then she let go. All three of them were on the ground, breathing hard, stunned, embarrassed. Mara stood over them, calm, unbothered. "Get up," she said quietly, "and don't try this again." She walked back toward the lodge without looking back. Behind her, the three of them stayed in the snow, silent, humiliated, and for the first time in a long time unsure of who they were. But she wasn't finished, not yet. The morning after the fight, the air in the lodge felt different, colder, sharper. People moved with a little more caution. Conversations stopped when she passed. Eyes followed her, but no one held her gaze for long. Caleb, Jax, and Dorsey were nowhere to be seen at breakfast. Word had spread, not because she told anyone. She hadn't said a thing. But in a place like this, silence is louder than shouting. And when three loud men go quiet all at once, people notice. Brewster stood at the front of the briefing room, clipboard in hand, running through the day's schedule. Ice rescue simulations, live rappel drills, full harness load under simulated cliff conditions. He scanned the room, paused when his eyes landed on Mara, then kept moving. She sat near the back, same coat, same quiet posture, but something had shifted. People weren't ignoring her anymore. They were watching, measuring, trying to figure out who she really was. The group loaded onto snowmobiles and headed for the ridge. The temperature had dropped overnight. Everything was harder now. The ice, the wind, the rope, nothing forgave mistakes. At the cliff face, Brewster assembled the teams and ran through the scenario. Simulated avalanche rescue. One person trapped below. Full extraction under time pressure. Real stakes. Real consequences. "Who's volunteering for the descent?" he called out. Silence. The wind howled across the ridge. No one moved. Then a voice from the back, "I'll go." It was Rodriguez, young, eager, maybe 23. He'd been quiet most of the rotation, kept his head down, worked hard, but he was inexperienced and everyone knew it. Brewster hesitated. "You sure?" Rodriguez nodded. "I'm sure." They rigged him up, double-checked the harness, secured the anchor points. Everything looked solid, everything felt right. Until it wasn't. Rodriguez started his descent, controlled, steady, but halfway down the ice anchor shifted, just slightly, just enough. His line went slack for half a second, then snapped taut again. He swung hard against the cliff face. His helmet cracked against the ice. He yelled out, panic rising in his voice. "Hold position," Brewster shouted. "Don't move." But Rodriguez was already scrambling. His boots scraped against nothing. His fingers clawed at the snowpack above. The rope twisted. The carabiners strained. People rushed to the edge. Voices overlapped. Commands got lost in the wind. And that's when Mara moved. She stepped through the group and dropped to one knee near the anchor point. Her gloves worked fast, checking the line tension, adjusting the carabiner, driving the rope deeper into the ice clamp with controlled force. She clipped her own belt into the second harness ring, pulled slack, then belly crawled toward the edge. No slip, no stumble, her body moved like water, low, balanced, undistracted. Rodriguez was starting to panic, boots scraping against nothing. His fingers clawed at the snowpack above. "Don't move," she called out, voice calm. "I've got you." He stopped struggling. She reached him, secured a double-wrapped loop around his chest harness, tightened it beneath the arms, then fed the tail back into the anchor ring. With a smooth roll of her wrist, she improvised a pulley assist using a side carabiner from her own belt, converting his downward pull into an angled lift. 3 tugs, the line tightened. 2 instructors moved in to assist. Together, they pulled him up and over the edge in less than 60 seconds. By the time Rodriguez was upright again, panting, red-faced, shaking. Mara had already unhooked, recoiled her portion of the line and stepped back to standing. Nobody spoke. Not until one of the medics whispered. She just ran a Tier 1 pulley under live pressure. Brewster stared at her. Where'd you learn to rig like that? She adjusted her gloves. United States Navy. 3 words, no flourish. Caleb looked down. Jack swallowed hard. Even Brewster didn't move for a moment. Then he cleared his throat. Let's reset the next drill. Mara walked off the ridge as quietly as she'd arrived. But this time, every eye followed her. The lodge didn't go quiet that afternoon. It went still. Voices dropped. Conversation shortened. People moved differently around the common room, not fearful, not reverent, just aware. Everyone had seen it. The ice rescue wasn't bravado, it wasn't power, it was something else. Precision under pressure, calm where there should have been panic. And when she said United States Navy, it didn't sound like pride. It sounded like truth. By 1500 hours, Mara was called to the admin conference room. She entered without hesitation. No change in posture, no visible reaction to the 3 men waiting inside. Brewster, the federal liaison, and the base facility director, Wilson. "Have a seat," Brewster said. She didn't. She remained standing, hands clasped behind her back, relaxed but alert. Wilson began. "We've reviewed the incident from last night." "I assumed you would," she said evenly. "We've also reviewed the rescue drill footage from this morning," the liaison added. "Several of our people flagged it as beyond the scope of logistics training." Mara said nothing. Wilson continued. "What exactly is your operational background?" Mara reached into her inner coat pocket and pulled out a sealed folder. She placed it on the table and slid it forward. The liaison opened it. Inside, a single-page credential sheet, black text on white. Naval Special Warfare Command, Lieutenant Commander Mara Ellison, active duty classified liaison, assignment authorization, interagency, rotational cover reference Ops 147, OCO and U.S. clearance granted. No one spoke for a moment. Brewster leaned forward slowly. "You're a SEAL." She nodded once, with audit clearance embedded under Joint Command. Wilson looked down, then back up. "Why didn't you report the altercation?" "Because I didn't need backup to neutralize it," she said, "and I wasn't here to draw attention." The liaison cleared his throat. "So you just let them off the hook?" "I gave them a chance to stop," she said. "They didn't take it." Brewster pressed a hand to his forehead. "We had no idea." "You weren't supposed to." Silence stretched again. Then Wilson spoke. "Caleb Jax Dorsey, what happens next?" "Your call," Mara said. "But for what it's worth, I'm not here for revenge. I'm here for standards." Brewster tapped a pen against the folder. "They'll be pulled from the exercise. Evaluations frozen. Admin review pending." She didn't nod, didn't thank him, just absorbed it. "They'll know why," Wilson added. "I think," Mara said quietly, "they already do." As she turned to leave, Brewster called after her. "You could have turned this into something big, made it a case, a press release." She looked back, not with pride but with calm. "Anyone can escalate a fight," she said. "Not everyone can end it the right way." Then she walked out, boots crunching softly over the rug. Word spread before she reached the mess hall, not from her, never from her, but from the room she left behind, and the silence it carried with it. The sun was beginning to fall behind the ridge, casting the valley in amber. Snow no longer came from the sky. It lifted in thin swirls off the powder, blown sideways by wind that had teeth. Everything was blue-shadowed and hushed. Even the radios had gone quiet. Mara Ellison stood alone at the overlook above the secondary trail. No one else came out this far. The snow was deeper here, the path narrower. The only sound was wind curling over the treetops and the faint creak of her boots settling into frozen ground. She wasn't there to pose. wasn't thinking in metaphors, she was just breathing. Her coat was zipped to the collar, her gloves hung loose in one hand. Her left shoulder still bore the faint scrape from where Jax's forearm had grazed her during the takedown. She hadn't treated it, didn't need to, it would heal. Footsteps behind her broke the stillness, not aggressive, not hesitant, just present. She didn't turn. "Ma'am." It was a younger trainee, barely mid-twenties. His voice was careful, not nervous, just measured. She waited. He stepped closer, staying behind her. "I just wanted to ask," he said. "If you didn't want recognition, why step in at all?" She finally turned. Not fast, not slow, just enough for the wind to move past her face and for her eyes to settle on his. "Because sometimes," she said quietly, "the right thing isn't loud." He stood there, absorbing it. Then he nodded, not like someone who was told what to do, but someone who understood. He saluted, crisp, clean, unforced. Mara didn't return it immediately. She waited until he dropped his hand, then gave a small nod, barely visible, but deeply earned. He walked off without another word. As she turned back toward the slope, more figures passed by in the distance. A patrol team returning from drills, a small group from the equipment shack, and without anyone speaking, they all shifted slightly as they passed her, not out of fear, not out of hierarchy, but out of something harder to earn. Acknowledgement. She stepped back onto the trail. The lodge lights glowed far ahead, yellow and warm behind frosted glass. Voices moved within them. Boots scraped wood. Someone laughed at something mundane. Life continued. But her shadow no longer moved alone. No medals, no formal debrief, just the quiet recognition that after 3 days of being mocked, dismissed, and pushed aside, she had made herself seen, not by shouting, not by proving, but by holding the line until the room caught up. And now no one questioned who she was anymore. Sometimes dignity doesn't speak, it simply acts.